Folks may remember, back in January, we covered this article in The Mirror from Nicola Medvin, lost Doctor Who episodes brought back using cartoons to mark the 60th anniversary. Thankfully, it is not a HD, 4K, 3D, 4DX restoration of Dreamland. We were denied this in this timeline, unfortunately. But this article from back in January 2nd in fact, was leaking, in quotes, from an insider, that William Hartnell's penultimate story, The Smugglers, and Patrick Troughton's third adventure, The Underwater Menace, were going to be getting animated reconstructions. And there was also talk as well about some colorizations that were going to be broadcast for the 60th anniversary of the show. Now, it turns out that one of these has actually come to pass. There was news this week that Patrick Troughton's third adventure, The Underwater Menace, is getting the animation treatment. I believe this is the same studio who did The Evil of the Daleks. It's a very similar, if not identical, Patrick Troughton and Fraser Hines model that we've got here in these images. The second Doctor's partially missing adventure will be animated with 4 new episodes in colour and high definition, releasing on DVD and Blu-ray. BBC Studios continues to offer Doctor Who fans the opportunity to extend their home collection by announcing the latest release, The Underwater Menace, on DVD and Blu-ray. The 2-disc box set contains the 4th series story, as well as special features. This classic series stars second Doctor Patrick Troughton, co-stars Annette Wills as Polly, Michael Grace as Ben, Fraser Hines as Jamie. It is available to order on DVD, Blu-ray, and Blu-ray Steelbook from Amazon, Rare Waves, and HMV. So, there are 2 episodes from this 4-parter missing. I believe it's parts 1 and part 4. 2 and 3 survive in the archive, mainly because of Australian censorship stuff, which is a fun behind-the-scenes thing that I'm sure that this box set is going to get into. The story sees these characters navigate their way in adventures in the underwater city of Atlantis, where they meet with Professor Zaroff, who plots to destroy the Earth by draining the oceans. Fans can expect a super jam-packed series, bursting with unseen exclusive content. All episodes have been animated in colour and black and white, whilst including original film elements. So, look at these fish people. Cool fish people. So, Disc 1 gets you parts 1 and 4 in colour and black and white animation. Disc 2, Special Features, is a telesnap reconstruction of episodes 1 and 4, the original episodes 2 and 3, which, for all intents and purposes for the commercial viability of these releases, are considered special features. The animated reconstructions are the main attraction, and the original, they're just a special garnish on the side. If you wanted to watch part 1 in animation, and then 2 and 3, the original versions, then go back to animation for part 4, you'd need to be swapping discs, which isn't an issue for me because I rip these suckers so I can use them for videos. Making of documentary, Australian censor clips, The Man from Midits, Fraser Hines' introduction for episode 2 as per the original VHS release. Some news reports from BBC Radio and BBC News, etc., the expected stuff. We do not have a specific release date yet, but we do know that this is coming out in November 2023. I don't think they've been restored either. Yeah, Josh Nez, they talked about it in a video that they released the other day, and because they actually have journalistic instincts, or at least an instinct to find official confirmation. Unlike me, I'm a pleb, but Josh actually asked people, or was able to source out clips and tweets and statements from people who are working on this release to confirm that these are not upscaled reconstructions. They're very likely going to be very similar to what they did for the DVD when it was released in 2010, I think. Also, the reason I'm showing HMV for this, you can get the DVD, the Blu-ray, or the limited edition Steelbook with the artwork pending. If you go into the description of this live stream, you will find a link to a HMV affiliate code, or at least an affiliate link, which will give you 10% off your first purchase at HMV. You'll need to be a new shopper, or at least a new account when shopping at HMV, but it does get you 10% off this $29.99 RRP. For some reason, Zavvi, when I last checked at least, was £5 more expensive for the Steelbook. So just for this, I'm going to say use my affiliate link for HMV. You'll get 10% off. And because it's over £20 as well, you'll get free delivery as well. HMV have been pretty damn reliable when it comes to shipping these things on time. Or at least, like, they've not been late. This is cool. it means that if this is true and The Smugglers is also set for an animated reconstruction, this means that potentially by the end of this year, there could be only one more story left from season 4 that has left to be animated, and that will be the Highlanders. That will be Fraser Hines' first story as Jamie. I believe The Underwater Menace was his second story as Jamie, but he was only an actual formal companion as far as the production team and the writers were concerned, like at the very last minute for production of the Highlanders. I think for the Underwater Menace, they had to film the episodes the week before they broadcast because they had so many script issues, so many production issues. I don't know if the story is any good. I've not watched it. I have not watched the DVD version that came out, although I know that it's pretty infamous. Once again, Josh Snares did a very good video breaking down what happened with the Underwater Menace DVD release. All I know is that I see fish people and I'm very, very happy. So obviously people are saying this is a strange choice, this is a weird choice. Honestly, when you get past the Doctor Who, like Dalek stories and the Cybermen stories or the Regeneration stories, basically the staple stories which have iconic villains or iconic historic moments within the show, everything's going to seem like a strange choice. Like, you know, the Smugglers, the Savages, the Celestial Toymaker, or maybe the latter of which, that makes a bit more sense because the Celestial Toymaker and the casting of Michael Gough was a pretty big deal. But, yeah, obviously, it's a classic Doctor Who story, which has missing episodes, so it makes sense that it's going to be animated at some point. What's quite interesting, though, is that we don't quite know who is funding this. Now, we know that BBC Studios is the company behind the animation, the same company who did The Evil of the Daleks, so hopefully this looks good. That's a pretty high bar. Evil of the Daleks was a very good animation. But who is actually funding this thing? Because my thoughts, my assumption going forward, when we learnt last year that the fundings for these animated reconstructions had been cut after The Abominable Snowmen, that either they'd be massively scaled back or we'd have to wait for official confirmation on who would be funding and making them moving forward, because BBC America had dropped out. Now, BBC America, they did the full animation reconstruction for all of the episodes because it made more sense when it came to selling it to other broadcasters or broadcasting it on its own, so it doesn't confuse people by going from animated to live action and vice versa, etc. But for this, because it's only 2 episodes missing, I say only, it's half the serial, it's half the story. I thought that maybe they would have just animated the missing episodes, but no, they've done the full 4-episode animation, so they're doing more than they ideally need to. It just makes me wonder who is funding this, and why are we learning about this animated reconstruction first, rather than the actual behind-the-scenes nitty-gritty of how they're getting made. It can only be assumed as well that a BFI screening is impending for this as well, probably in the weeks or maybe the month before, potentially maybe October. They'll be doing a BFI screening of The Underwater Menace, which I will try and attend. The 5 Doctors BFI screening for September 16th sold out before it could even go onto general sale. All of the tickets were snapped up by BFI members, which I think was pretty unfair. Person was here says, my guess is that it was Disney Plus money. I don't think so. I think if it was Disney Plus money, they're basically the Joker in that Under the Red Hood movie. You know, like, you know, I wouldn't want, you think that I'd cause all of this trouble and not let you know that you knew it was me? Like, that's Disney in this scenario. They would want the credit. They would want the plaudits. And obviously, Disney animating Doctor Who is a headline grabber. If it was Disney Plus, I feel like they would have opened with that. Or they would have said, Disney are animating Doctor Who stories, and then a few weeks or a few months later, drop that the first one is The Underwater Menace. The Mirror article from January said it wasn't Disney. Yeah, the Mirror article definitely, I think it did it specify that it wasn't Disney? Yeah, the animation deal is not connected to the show's tie-up with Disney Plus. Now, the way that's worded means that, for example, these episodes would not be on Disney Plus. Like, it's not a broadcast deal. That doesn't stop Disney from potentially funding them in future, but it means that they won't be on Disney Plus, if that makes sense. Also, I feel like the budget would have gone up a lot more if it was Disney. Yeah, I feel like it. Like, not to say that this looks bad, but yeah, this is basic. This is the animation. Like, it's not quite Macroterra, but it looks good. Looks polished. Very cool. Look at it. Look, he's such a sweepy boy. Such a sweepy boy. Aww. Oh, and Ben and Jamie get their own little net. Aww. How cute. That's very cute. I don't know. I don't know if that's an animation detail or if that's something from the original story. But I think that's a very cute. They can. Have you ever kissed a Scotsman under a net in Atlantis? Ah, that is sweet, yeah. Honestly, I've not been keeping up with Disney's original animated projects outside. What are they working on outside of, like, the Disney Princess brand and Marvel was like, What If? What have Disney been working on recently in terms of, like, animated stories that aren't like a big licensed branch, if that makes sense? Basically, transparency in this case would be nice, but where transparency is absolutely essential is when fans get involved with these animated reconstructions. Now, here's a tweet from Josh Snares from earlier on today. They say, interesting update on Ian Levine's missing episode animation project. He has budgeted £20,000 for the massacre and is accepting minimum £100 for donations, no less. If you don't donate, you don't see it. What are your thoughts, feelings, and emotions on the project? So here's a screenshot of William Hartnell from this massacre animated reconstruction and a Facebook post from Ian Levine. You can send me a private message. The massacre is costing us $20,000, so unfortunately any donations of less than £100 are not worth making. Honestly, I think that any donation of, like, money for a fan project is absolutely worth making, or it should at least be gratefully received. But I don't know too much about this. I do know that Ian Levine has done animated reconstructions in the past. For example, he did a Mission to the Unknown animated reconstruction. So I don't think that Ian Levine is, like, being a con man here. I don't think he's being a scam artist. I believe that he has every intention of making an animated version of the massacre. However, when you're budgeting £20,000 and you are accepting minimum £100 donations, like, this isn't like chipping in a couple of quid here and there. If you want to watch this animated version of the massacre, you have to pay £100, which, if we're going at the economy of HMV here, is 5 Doctor Who The Underwater Menace animation Blu-rays. Maybe a bit more if you use my affiliate link HMV. But yeah, without any transparency as to how many people are working on this animation, the guarantee that it will actually be made, especially when you are in fact mandating donations of £100 or more, I think that's pretty shady. If you want to make animated fan reconstructions, go right ahead. Fill your boots. For example, Dino Puff did a fantastic one for part 1 of the Celestial Toymaker. Awesome work, highly recommended. However, Dino Puff did not ask for donations. Dino Puff was not putting it behind a paywall, which I don't think is legal. I don't know. Because it's done as a donation, for example, you're not paying for a massacre reconstruction. You're paying Ian Levine, who just so happens to be making a massacre reconstruction. But then again, you have to pay over £100 to see it. This is really shaky territory. Like, for example, my Patreon, if I just made it completely exclusive and the BBC had issues with the copyrighted material that I use, that's slightly like shaky ground. But because the videos have every intention of being available to view on YouTube and you're just basically, it's a tip jar, basically. My Patreon is a tip jar. For this, it's a £100 paywall for a fan animation. I don't think this is right. Obviously, he's free to do whatever he wants in regards to making a fan animation, and sincerely, I wish him the best of luck in a fan adaptation, a fan animation of the massacre. Genuinely, best of luck, Ian. But I don't think you should put it behind a paywall, because that's very legally dubious, and also, for £20,000 and £400 worth of donations, a bit more transparency is needed as to who is working on it with you. How is the money being that you're getting from these donations being allocated towards, like, paying animators or rights or software, equipment, whatever. Just basic transparency that a crowdfunder would have, for example. Dan Stetic, I really want to make a short animation based on Doctor Who, maybe a scene from a Big Finish story. One thing I really would like to try and do one day is a fan short film of the scene from Rob Shearman's Dalek Target novel, where it encounters who it believes to be the Doctor when it's been shortly fished out of the Ascension Island's crater. and it encounters somebody who it thinks is the Doctor. And I was listening to that audiobook narrated by Nicholas Briggs and thought this would make a fantastic short film. I just need a battered Dalek prop, but those are quite expensive. In the US, that'd be pretty obviously copyright infringement. Disney have a hand in stuff now. Now, I don't think Disney will have a hand in classic animation in the classic series. For all we know, let's wait till the 60th anniversary is broadcast, and then that information becomes more public and more well known. But it's definitely on shaky ground legally. I am not a legal expert. I am not a lawyer. However, I definitely do know more about fair use and copyright infringement than your average schmo, due to the fact that I need to know this in order to have my YouTube channel. I've actually gone into legal meetings with people, and I've surprised them with my breadth of knowledge and how much I'm able to quote directly from fair use doctrine in the UK and in the US. So, I'm not legally, professionally qualified, but I know a lot about copyright law, and even I think this is a bit nah. Have you seen the clip where Frank Skinner and Rusty Davis take the mick out of Ian Levine? No, but I think I've seen the transcript of it. I know that there's that Elizabeth Sladen, Ian Levine bit. One second, Elizabeth.
Having worn the same clothes for all this time. So
look, if you've got a Dalek up your arse, you don't worry about your jumper, do you, Ian?
I know that there's the prevailing rumour, or at least headcanon at this point, that the Absorbaloff from Love and Monsters was based off Ian Levine, which I think is a bit harsh. But the Love and Monsters is about over-obsessed fans ruining it for everybody else just trying to have a good time, which in terms of commentary of a Doctor Who fandom is absolutely prescient. I massively appreciate the subtext.